to everybody. First of all, before starting, I'd like to express my congratulations and thanks to the two organizers who made this conference possible. We have, of course, in Geneva a lot of meetings on sustainability, but I think we also need sustainability to the discussions of sustainability. And what you have now put together is a very good conference to look at the partnerships. Well, my focus will not look at, I'm not going to focus on the grand bargain, the big partnerships between, let's say, World Bank and some development organizations, aid organizations. I'm looking at the nitty-gritty for PPPs, for physical and social infrastructure. So that's the focus of my presentation. I'm not saying that the other ones are not important. On the contrary, the grand bargains of partnerships between countries and international organizations is very important. But let me focus just on the nitty-gritty of PPPs. So I already said I'd be focusing on the PPPs as such, physical and social infrastructure. Now, as you all know, the agreement at the end, just before signing the document in 2015, there were some contentious issues. One was whether there should be only a focus at the national government level, or whether it would be okay also to add subnational levels, because when it comes to a large country, and if you only focus in terms of the reviews at national level, the averaging out doesn't give enough information as to, what really is happening in the country and its different provinces. We need this aggregate information. So I was very happy to see that the agreement was reached to also now look at subnational level that could be cities, municipalities, or provinces. And in a way, that's also what I'm focusing on. At the bottom of this page, just to remind ourselves, right, we have governments for purpose. The purpose of governments in most of our countries is we expect of them to organize and provide basic education, social services, urban planning, local infrastructure, water supply, public transport, waste management, housing, local economic development, sewage systems that function, and public order. That's still the domain of governments. We can, of course, include private sector companies to deliver some of these services, but it's the responsibility of our governments to manage this and to do it either by themselves or with and including private sector companies. So financing, in terms of the local government, what's key in terms of the SDGs is 16.6 and 16.7. As a reminder, 16.6 says to develop effective, accountable, and transparent institutions at all levels. As you know, there are 3 dimensions to the SDGs. Our country is supposed to, at the same time, to focus on sustainable economic, social, and environmental sustainability, all in one, not just environment. And at the same time, to have the 3 principles to put that in action. That is, it should be done in a transparent manner, through participation and inclusiveness. So to be more concrete, when it comes to 16.6, it merely means that we expect our governments to be oriented towards including society, towards participation, hearing from our civil society what they need and what they think should be done, and to do it in a transparent manner. 16.7 is already what I said. It's easier, of course, to talk about that and to organize it. But one of the things I've done books on this, I think one important item, which we haven't discussed sufficiently, is how to help our governments to be effective. Right? There's something about the mechanisms that exist to get the ministries to talk to each other, to cooperate. There are mechanisms to get the government to talk to private sector and to civil society. It's called, to consult, to have a consultative process. So there are things that can be done. I think we should also maybe have another conference on that because it's of crucial importance. How to finance the SDGs. We've heard that already yesterday. We all know these are phenomenal amount of money that is being put forward to us, 2.5 trillion, how to finance this. Of course, it's understandable that we are now hoping somehow it could be financed through other means than the traditional means. But I'd like to remind ourselves, there are these options. Governments can do things by themselves if they have the money and the know-how, and they can go about delivering these services I mentioned just before in the previous slide. If that's not the case, there are other options to include through PPP the private sector, for instance, but it's not just private sector. I'm going to come back to that shortly. Or to have other forms of, including privatization, to get services to the people through different means. Now, this also then means when you look at the option and the risks to the government or the risks to the private sector, if it's a private sector government PPP, at the end, as you see, the options, the risks either increase or decrease. But in any case, what is of paramount importance is that if we look at how our governments opt for implementing the SDGs, no matter what solution they might choose, PPPs or non-PPPs or concessions or privatization, we should be sure we keep accountability present with us, not just to hold a government accountable, but to also conduct a continuous dialogue in case of need of changing of course. It is of importance that we have that transparency of what's happening, whether it's effective or not effective. And the same holds for the private sector. We should know if there's a big physical infrastructure project, lots of money being spent, what exactly does that mean in terms of potential indebtedness of the government? How do we know whether it's effective or not effective? These are crucial questions that we should keep asking ourselves. Now, 17.17, partnerships. I highlighted in red. Well, most people, I think, haven't really looked at it in more detail. It's no longer business as usual, that is, some intermediaries, banking, financial companies that finance on behalf of a government bigger physical infrastructure projects. It's not only that, it continues to be that, of course. It needs to be including still intermediaries, but it's also possible to have PPPs including civil society. It could be with cooperatives. It could be with all forms of community-based organizations. And we have made, actually I participated in another organization based in Geneva called the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe. We've done several conferences looking at case examples where very good projects have been put in place and they work, that includes not only private sector and government, but also civil society or cooperatives. That exists. What is problematic, and Barbara Adams mentioned it yesterday, I've done papers on this, we have 17.1, which is the indicator for PPPs. It's just simply inadequate. It only measures money spent, and I don't even know how they're going to go and account for that. But there's nothing about the effectiveness, what kind of PPPs. Next year, we have the opportunity to rediscuss indicators. I hope that we'll do more about 17.1. Last year, I was a speaker in Jamaica for the Caribbean countries about financing the SDGs. So I put this slide in front of the ministers of the region, asking, do you know what this means? The silence was very telling. Now, these are the kinds of PPPs that are in place. If our governments don't know what the legal implications are of each one of them, it's the recipe for disaster. And if on top of it, we have over the next 13 years, probably many of our countries, the governments will change. So the people that are in place who have learned how to manage PPPs and maybe got to know the legal implications of these different kinds of PPPs might no longer be in government. So the next group that comes in might not yet know what this means and what the previous government has signed up to. We need to have much more information shared between us, between the governments, what the options also are. Some of these are more beneficial maybe for the country. Others are more of a hazard in terms of indebtedness. We need to share more information about this. So, if you have a country, as an example, which has gone through structural adjustment programs and has learned or has been told to cut back revenue generation through traditional means, such as tax collection, if there is no money around, of course, the SDGs cannot be financed. So then the country has to look for external financing. And if then the country does that, and they don't even know what kind of PPPs are available, then it really could be a recipe for disaster. I have published on this, I'm happy to share that, for future PPPs, we should apply what's in the text of 2015. Are these PPPs going to do something about the planet, about peace, about prosperity, in what way, to what extent? It's not just going to be signing off a project and spend the money. We should see what does it generate in terms of SDGs. So at the end, it's a question also of good governance. There are also ISO-related instruments to help improve quality of governance, and I think we'll need all of that in order to ensure that what we do about the SDGs will hold and will be sustainable and will be happy about what we have agreed to do. Thank you very much.
So please remember, if we all help and do a little bit, it will make a big difference.